so great to see your faces, and we're coming together to hopefully change the earth and change everybody's minds about the earth and take care of it well, right? That's why we're here. So I'm Shayer. You can call me Shaw. All of those fancy words that Liz just said just means I like to produce music and I like to inspire others to find their creativity. And it's really important to live a creative life. So that's what that meant. So, and before I get talking, well, I'm already talking. Before I get into my story, I want to thank the Dogwood Alliance for this wonderful event. Thank you for this beautiful opportunity to speak and to tell my story. This is my first time storytelling in this way, so just happy to be here. And yeah. Alrighty, so I got my little cheat sheet, okay? Do y'all believe in signs? Because I do. I'm somebody who is always looking for a sign. Like, please, ancestors, spirit guides, send me some direction. You know, it's hard enough on earth by myself. Like, please, I'm exhausted. I need a sign. I need some guidance, right? And I also grew up in a very superstitious family. I'm Jamaican and I'm Black Southern, so we always have some sort of story or folk tale that's like, hey, you need to do this, not this. So I'm always looking for something to give me a little, go that way. Well, I was at a time in my life where I needed change. I just needed something different. I felt like that part of my life was complete. And so one of my friends said, hey, you should go to see this tarot lady and this trusted spirit lady. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so we did our tarot reading. It was pretty cool. And I told her, I was like, well, I want to live a creative life and I want to pursue a creative career. And I'm thinking about moving. I'm thinking about LA or New York. So did the cards say anything? Do you feel anything about it? And she was like, well, LA, you have a friend there. It'll be nice. You'll have medium success. It'll be cool. And I was like, all right, well, that's not exciting. I was like, okay, so what about New York? And she was like, it's going to be hard. And I was like, hard? And she was like, hard. And I was like, nothing else. But you know what? I was like, well, what does hard really mean? In North Carolina, I already knew what hard was. I was living a hard life. I was working 50 plus hours a week at a job that made my stomach hurt every time I walked into the door. This was my first time being a caregiver. I was taking care of my grandmother at the time while my mom was away. And then I also was living at home and I felt old enough and I was like, do I have any privacy? And then also with my friends, we were just in two different places. They wanted something regular and I wanted more. So I was like, man, what does hard really mean? So I took that with me. I left the shop and I thought about it. Well, in a few months, I got a sign. I like those. My sister called me and she said, Shaw, she was living in New York at the time. And she was like, Shaw, one of my roommates is moving out. You have an opportunity to come to New York. It'll be easy for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the stars are speaking to me. And so I was able to transfer my then job to New York. I had a place to stay and it was reasonable enough for me to pay rent. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I was like, yeah, I don't think that will be, I think that'll be the way for me. The only thing that I really thought that was hard was leaving North Carolina was, I missed the stars. I'm somebody who used to spend all of my time outside. Like even as a kid, you could not pay me to come inside. I wanted to chase those lightning bugs. I wanted to play tag with my friends and the neighborhood kids and my cousins. Like even now, I love sitting on a porch and sipping some tea. Like you can't take me off of the porch. So knew that I was moving somewhere different where I couldn't see the stars, where I couldn't just sit outside and feel the breeze. And that was something that really brought calm to me and brought me peace. So that part was hard for me to transition out of, but I knew that New York was the place that I needed to be. New York made me feel so alive. It was a lot of energy there. I felt like I could be my silly self and nobody even cared. Like I could just go out and be whoever I wanted to be in New York and I could live that creative life. So I thought that it was the right decision. Well, in a few months, I was living in New York, and that's when that tarot lady popped in my head when she said, "It's gonna be hard." And I was like, "Oh, I'm feeling it. It's hard. It's kind of hard." At the time, I was doing the artist life. I was a server during the nighttime, and I was going to auditions during the day, maybe working a temp job or two in between. And that was something that I haven't lived yet. New York City, if you haven't been or you haven't been often, it is the hustle capital of the world. You are always moving from this place to this place to get to the next connection, to meet the next person, to try and finally get your shot. And that's just what the life is. So my little southern legs could not move as fast as all the New Yorkers that I was around. It felt like I was like walking slower than everybody. And it felt like I was always late to everything. And I really was, because, I was on Southern time. Well, let me take a breath. I was talking fast. Sorry, y'all. Well, I was just in a vicious cycle. I would get up early. I would try and go to an audition. Then I'd go to a temp job. And then I would go to this comedy club and work until like 4 a.m. And it was just, it was a different type of life that I was living. And the thing is, when I worked at this comedy club, it was cool walking in because you felt like a superstar. Like it had this long red carpet and it had all of these comedians on the wall. You were like, oh man, I saw them on a late night show. And oh my gosh, they're famous. They were in that movie. And then you'd walk down, you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm in VIP. And so it was like a really lovely place to be in. And we would get a lot of tourists. So a lot of people from North Carolina would be in there. And you'd see some people, they were a couple, they would be on their anniversary trip, or you see some bridesmaids and you knew that they were all going to order Tito's because all the girlies are gluten-free. So it was like a really wonderful place to be. But not from my angle. I would come up to the table and I say my spiel and I say, hi, I'm Shair. I'll be your server tonight. Yes, there is a 2-drink minimum. No, you cannot substitute food for your drinks. What can I get you? And then the people would be like, oh my gosh, this is our weekend in New York. We're having such a great time. Can you recommend any places to go? We're here for a weekend. We've already been downtown. What's happening in Brooklyn? Where do we go? And I would just look at them like, ma'am, can you please hurry up and can you hurry up and give me your order? Because I have 4 more tables and we have like an hour left in the show. Like, I don't have anything to tell you. But then inside, I felt really sad because I really had nothing to tell her. I was like in this vicious cycle of working and trying to make it that I didn't even get to enjoy the city. I didn't even get to see the city. I didn't even know where the place to be was. And so that was my life in New York at that time. So when that tarot lady said hard, she really meant hard. And so what happens next is one day I go home and after this shift and it's like 4 a.m., I'm trying to decompress in my room and just being like, well, I got to get up early, and just trying to wash the day away. And I'm in my room and I have this one little window and I feel like someone's looking at me. I feel like some eyes are on me. I was like, who could be looking at me? Now, I lived in an apartment that was on the 5th floor. And if you've never seen an apartment building in New York, there are no elevators in most of them. So that means you're walking up 5 flights of stairs every single day, okay? And that means with your laundry and your groceries, all right? So I was in the 5th floor in this small apartment room, and I feel eyes on me. It's like, that doesn't feel right. And then I hear a tapping, and I was like, whoa. Who is knocking on the window? Who could be up here on the 5th floor? And then I hear scratching. And then I hear another knock. I was like, that's strange. So I pulled the curtain and I was like, ah! And I pulled it back. And I was like, okay, be courageous. I know you saw something, but be courageous. Open the curtain. I open the curtain and I see these pair of eyes, these long eyes just looking at me. And then I see this square-shaped head and these black ears. And then I see these long black fingernails and these hands. They're just like these little fingers going like this in the window. And I was like, is that a raccoon? That's a raccoon. It was the most huge raccoon I've ever seen. It had to be this big, maybe this big, but it was pretty big. So I was like, what is a raccoon doing on the 5th floor of my New York apartment, sitting on my AC unit, just chilling, staring at me, knocking on the window? And I was like, is this a sign? Well, me and this raccoon are just staring each other down. And I move to the left and it moves to the left. I move to the right, it moves to the right. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna sit here and dance. What are you doing here? And then it tries to open the window. It has those little hands, so it's just like, ugh. And I was like, stop that. And it stops and it looks at me. And it goes, ugh. It trying to open it again. It's like, stop that. So we do that for a few minutes, back and forth. And then I just shut the window and then it leaves. I'm like, what in the world? I know that you can see some crazy things in New York, but I had never thought that I would see a raccoon. And so I immediately go to my phone and was like, what does a raccoon mean? And it brought up some things. It said like a raccoon can mean like their personality is mischievous, playful, adaptability. And it said if you see one in your dreams, that could mean an omen. And I was like, ooh, an omen, that sounds kind of evil. But I was like, I'll take that as a sign. But you know what this raccoon made me think of? North Carolina. It made me think of North Carolina. And I was at a point in my life where I was adapting to something so different, just so new. And I think that I needed to bring more play into my life. And what was my favorite thing to do and how do I really bring play into my life was going outside. This whole time I had been working, I was never going outside only to get to the next gig, to the next gig, and to the next gig. I never got to pause and be like, it smells good, or like go see a tree. So the next day, I made sure that I put time in my calendar to go to the park. So I went to the park. There are kids playing. People are playing basketball. Some Caribbeans playing dominoes. And I just sat down on a bench and I took a breath. And I want to say like everything just fell off of my body. My shoulders finally were not at my ears. And I got to relax and I remembered, oh, this is what it feels like. This is what I needed. I needed to go outside. Now, I might not have had the stars, but at least I had something. I had something to bring me that peace and that calm and to remember kind of like why we're here and what nature can do for us. So if you ever see a raccoon, you might need to step outside, okay? Thank you.